Okay, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Today, once again, I have with me Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you this fine Tuesday?
Good. It's been a busy week. Whenever we come up with topics for a podcast, sometimes it's been a slow week or whatnot. It's been busy. There's like we have 16 topics basically, and I even left off some things pretty much next week and stuff. But yeah, we have a lot to cover, and for as people are coming into the show, I'll just say once again, please share, subscribe, does all that. It does the show, some good. Anyway, so I didn't put this in the show notes because I just wanted to do a little rant a bit. So last week we got the GTA 5 remaster of a remaster. Uh, you know, a lot of reactions have came out about that game, and it's not really positive. The thing is, if you take a screenshot in a photo mode, it looks really good. Look at the other games, pretty much across the board. Photo mode games, they look good. But everything I've seen, videos, I've seen 4K video, it looks pretty much the same. Did you buy it by any chance?
I have not actually.
Okay, so like bear in mind, I've went on the record and I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. Like I was addicted to GTA Online. That came out in 2013, and I was playing it constantly. That's all I could think about. I'd go to bed and I'd be thinking, how much money I could be earning on GTA Online. Like I was obsessed. Like the way I was with that game was not healthy. I don't think that video game addiction is a thing. But when it comes to things in video games, I think people can be addicted to, the grinding for money in that game. And it came to a point in that game I was realizing like I was grinding to make money in GTA Online for no purpose. I wasn't doing it to buy fancy cars or get an apartment. I just wanted to see that millions number go up. So it got to the point where I earned about $370 million online, and that's a lot of money in that game. Like it's a lot of money, but like it's not fun anymore to me. I had to step back. Hi, Tool Man in chat. But yeah, like I had to step back from that game because that's all I could think about, and it just wasn't healthy. I think if people have addiction to it, like something in a multiplayer game like that, like grinding, they have to step back. Like I deleted the game, but with this whole like remaster thing, I was looking at the price and I was thinking, you know what, £17 is not that much. Maybe I'll just get it and play through the story. But yeah, I mean, everything I've seen in the game, it looks the same. It's going to be at a reduced price till June, I believe, which, it's not bad. But like, if people haven't played GTA Online or especially the story, I think it's a good time to jump in. I think the way Rockstar's handled the multiplayer is absolutely atrocious. Like if you've had a character for years and you've played with a group of mates for years, the only way you can play with them is if you convince them to jump into the new generation version. That's if they have a new console. Microsoft, Sony, even Nintendo, they all having chip shortages at the minute. Like everyone's dealing with this, and the fact that they're forcing people to be like just be working with next gen people. Like I think splitting the player base for no reason is just stupid. Like GTA Online offers nothing apparently different. Like you have a fancy car with a gun on it. That's it. So like if people are looking at that game, I think maybe be careful because again you cannot transfer your save back and forth. And yeah, not being cross gen for multiplayer is just atrocious, man. Like, what were they thinking? And the thing is, Rockstar, they've made masterpieces. I'll talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 all day. I love that game. But the way they've treated that multiplayer, the way they split in the player base, like they have the biggest game on the planet and they split the player base like 8 years in. Like, what were they thinking? Like, it makes no sense. It's weird, man. Like, so if people are going to be getting it, make sure that all your friends that you play with also have the next gen versions or plan on getting it. Otherwise, you're going to be playing by yourself and with randoms, which doesn't sound that fun. And it sounded like Rockstar kind of. I'll be honest. It sounded like they half-assed the Xbox version and the Xbox Series S version. Like they can do better. We've seen 60 frames games. If Far Cry can run at 60 frames on a Series S, GTA can. Like Far Cry 6 is an unbelievably good-looking game. They didn't try, but I mean, hey, we'll move on because I could rant about this all day. So one of the first topics we're going to go over is Japanese games, and I cannot pronounce this name correctly, so Logan, let's talk about the Japanese game stuff.
Yeah, Spike Chunsoft, I believe that's right. It might be Chunsoft. If I've mispronunciated, I apologize. But I'm big fans of their work. The Nonary games they have now brought to Xbox, and it's on Game Pass currently. It comes with the first and second one, and the third one's not on Xbox yet, but this is a good sign. They had also brought their Danganronpa game to Xbox, the remaster remake of the first one. So it's just another example of more Japanese publishers, aside from Atlas and Square Enix, showing interest in Xbox and bringing their titles to the platform. So if you want to see more of them come to the platform, show support, check them out at the very least on Game Pass. They're kind of graphic novelty, visual novelty type games with puzzles, and you got to make some moral decisions like, do I betray this person? Do I trust this person? There's time travel. There's it's a mind cluster. Just the stuff they come up with in these games. But if you like those type of adventures, I definitely recommend checking it out.
Even though those types of games may not be my cup of tea, we still need them on the platform. Like, more games the better. Like, you can't really complain about having more games, but that's good news, man. Like, there's an audience for that stuff. Again, even things like Yakuza, there's a built-in audience for Yakuza now on Xbox, and at the end of the day, these developers are just going to make more money by porting these games to Xbox. And one day, maybe Atlas will actually realize it, after their next game probably does well. But yeah, I was going to wait a bit. I think I'll save the Square rant for a bit because I'm going to kick off about that. So, Dying Light, the first game, which came out in, I think, 2015, amazing game. I recommend it to people. It got its free next-gen upgrade. After all these years, it's still getting support. And and the thing is, even though the sequel's out, the first game is still going to continue to get support, which is awesome. So, I've got the details right here. Dying Light on Xbox Series X has a performance mode. It's now 60 FPS in full HD. It also offers a balance mode, which is 60 frames per second at quad HD, which is actually really good. And quality mode it's 30 frames at 4K. Now, on the Xbox Series S, and I'll go into about the Xbox Series S in a bit. Now, the Xbox Series S and the Xbox One X have the exact same settings when it comes to this update. So, performance mode is 30 frames with full HD. Quality mode is 30 FPS in quad HD. And there's new networking abilities and stuff. So, good stuff all around, except for the Series S. Now, I've seen people kick off online about this. I'll just put this out there. I think they'll actually patch it again because they've continuously optimized that game for years. And I believe they will do again for the Xbox Series S because it makes sense. The game still sells. It's in the top 20 almost every month. Like, you've played the first Dying Light game, right?
Oh yeah, it's one of the best bang for your buck titles of last gen. Like, I had picked it up on a whim and I was blown away by the quality. I'm like, nobody's talking about this game. This game's awesome. And then I found out, oh, it was made by the Dead Island guys. I'm like, okay, I can see some similarities, but zombie parkour, it was open world. It was pretty new idea, and I'm glad they're bringing more support to it and keeping it going. It's better than ever now.
Yeah, so like, when it comes to the Series S, I wouldn't keep bugging the developers. They will continue to like patch it. They have done with the game for years. But I mean, I've seen screenshots and videos so far, and I must say I'm impressed. Again, a game from 2015, is still getting support and a next gen upgrade for free. Like, look at all the other games that came out that year that still doesn't get support. Like, I complain about this on Twitter. Batman Arkham Knight, that needs some love, man. Just some options. But I look at Dying Light, it's a fantastic game. That game had no hype whatsoever leading up to its launch. No one was talking about it. People were saying it's like Dead Island or Dead Island ripoff, and it's like it's completely different. It's an amazing game, and it surprised everyone. It sold millions, and it's basically charted, I'd say, in the top 20 almost consistently since its launch. So it's done really well, especially considering they still get support. And the last expansion came out like a month ago. But yeah, it's good that they're still supporting this. And I've seen screenshots and video. It looks beautiful. Like, the funny thing about that game is that about 3 months after launch, they actually updated it and gave people the option to remove film grain. Now, if people have been following me on Twitter and YouTube long enough, I complain about film grain almost weekly. Like, I think that thing ruins images. Why make your image blurrier? Like, what's your thought on film grain?
Oh, I hate it so much. Like, it and motion blur and vibrate are like three of the first three things I turn off immediately whenever I start up again.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. Like, this could be another rant in itself. Like, think about it. The year's 2007. Mass Effect comes out. It's my most anticipated game of all time. I start playing, and I'm thinking, this game is kind of ugly. Like, there's something wrong with it. And I noticed graphical settings. Like, that was one of the few Xbox 360 games to actually have graphical settings. You could turn off motion blur and turn off film grain. And the game, for its time, was beautiful. And I highly recommend people that play a Legendary Edition turn both of those things off. They make games look bad, But yeah, film grain in games, keep it off. We don't need that. It's ugly. But yeah, Dying Light, I highly recommend people play it. Mohammed, I believe in chat said like the first game, the first game and the second game are very different. The second game is more of an RPG. I'd say it's like Fallout kind of in a way. It's got questing and choices and stuff. The first game is very much an action adventure in an open environment. But I mean, hell, after I finish the sequel, I'm gonna go back to the first game, and go through the expansion again because it just offers so much value. But yeah, I highly recommend people pick up the first game as well. I think it'll set people up to play the sequel better, especially since the parkour isn't as advanced as it is in the sequel. So I think it's a good way to play it. Anyway, we'll move on. Star Trek Resurgence. There's this new Star Trek game coming out by a lot of ex-developers from Telltale. Telltale shut down properly a few years ago and it came back, but a lot of developers went elsewhere. And they've been hard at work on this new Unreal Engine 4 Star Trek game. And it looks really good. And I was kind of worried because we didn't see much on it. But IGN has had a lot of coverage over the past few weeks. And as a Star Trek fan, I'll get this out the way, they've perfected this. Like, people have said for years they want proper Star Trek. And they basically mean tone and feel, like a lot of the newer Star Trek series. They don't really seem as sophisticated as Star Trek The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or Voyager. And this is very much in line with Star Trek Voyager and Deep Space Nine and TNG. Like, if people like Star Trek, like you've seen Star Trek before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, people have been wanting traditional Star Trek, and this is traditional Star Trek. It's set after the Dominion War, and I'm boring all the non-Star Trek fans out there, but I'll be done in a minute. But yeah, if people are interested in more Star Trek games, like literally, we got one Star Trek game last generation on Xbox, and that's Star Trek Online, which it's pretty good, but it came out in 2010. Like, it's a pretty old MMO, but yeah, the screenshots look good, the gameplay looks good. If you like Telltale-centric games, you're probably going to like this. Again, it comes out in spring still, apparently, so we should be hearing more about that soon. Now, I'm gonna talk about the... By the way, did you see the Star Trek Resurgence stuff?
I have not, but I like Star Trek. I'm all for more sci-fi adventures, and Telltale was one of my favorite studios before they shuttered, and I'm so glad they got resurrected. I know not all the original folks are there, but I've been eagerly anticipating Wolf Among Us 2 and their other future titles. So the original team that is working on this, that are expatriates of Telltale, it should be a good title.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a Telltale game just without the name attached to it. And, they're using a modern engine, which is good. But yeah, it looks good, man. I mean, again, the actor they have playing Spock literally sounds like Leonard Nimoy. So they're doing some good stuff there. And again, if people want a Star Trek game and they want more Star Trek games, support this game. Like, it looks like a Telltale game. And, we also have the Expanse game coming by Telltale. We also had more news by Telltale this year about The Wolf Among Us 2 comes out next year, which is really exciting. Like, The Wolf Among Us is amazing. Like, you've played that, right?
Absolutely. That ending, man, I was devastated when I thought we were never going to get part 2, and I was because the what no spoilers, but the way it ends, it would leave you very upset if you were invested in that game and you never got part 2. I'll just put it that way. So I'm so thrilled they're continuing the story.
Yeah, they teased like a sequel as they were rolling out the episodes, but I'd say it's pretty much the best Telltale game when it comes to a story. But yeah, sequel comes out for that next year. We get an Expanse game. I think that's probably going to come afterwards, and the Star Trek Resurgence game, which looks really good. Right, I'm gonna get onto the whole Square Enix thing because I have a bone to pick with them again. And we've been doing these podcasts since I think like September or October, whatever, last year. And I tend to rant about Square Enix a lot because they make a lot of dumb decisions, all the time, and I don't know how. Again, before I go on to the rant, please subscribe and share. Share it out there. It really helps the channel out. So, Square Enix, what have they done now? Well, the past few weeks, or it might have been the last week, that Guardians of the Galaxy came to Xbox Game Pass. A lot of people are experiencing this game for the first time and they're loving it, which is awesome to see. And bear in mind, what I'm about to say is not about the people that are playing about Game Pass. This is strictly about Square Enix. So, I talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, though. I keep telling people to play it, buy it, whatever, Just support the game in some way. Playing it via Game Pass is actually supporting the game. So, whenever I talk about this game on Twitter, I always get a bunch of replies by people, especially lately since it's in Game Pass. They're saying that they love the game. They can't believe how good it is. They want a sequel and whatnot. And all these people had no idea what this game was. The game wasn't advertised properly. People thought it was an Avengers title. People still think to this day that, it's linked to the Avengers game. It's an online service game. And I've never once ranted about Square Enix. Just a bit, But yeah, I mean, everyone's literally, if you go to any of my posts about Guardians of the Galaxy, people adore this game, And it makes me happy because it's a single player action adventure. It's open world. It's sci-fi. It ticks every box for me. And it just worked so well. The writing, amazing soundtrack, gameplay, excellent. Everything about that game, great. But it underperformed to Square Enix. People didn't bloody know what that game was, right? Nobody knew what the hell that game was. I had to advertise that game more than them, sadly. And then they had to put out a trailer after the game released saying single-player action-adventure, which is pretty sad because, again, everyone thought it was an Avengers online service title. And I've had, maybe over the past few months since I've been talking about the game and, actually had other people buy the game because of what I've been talking about in, my review and stuff. And it's people genuinely have nothing but good things to say about the Guardians of the Galaxy. And, you'd think something like that, the amount of people playing it via Game Pass, the positive reviews, it's a really well-received game, critically, and, the fans love it. And, by the way, you've played it already, haven't you?
I have not, but I have the deluxe edition, steelbook, everything. It's in my backlog. I've just been a little caught up in Elden Ring at the moment, but whenever I finish that, it's on my list for sure.
Yeah, no spoilers. That game has probably one of the best stories in probably 10 years in games. That game is incredible. I will be talking about it again in a future video, but, it's just an incredible single-player action adventure. And the thing is, Square Enix, they'll put out a Japanese RPG such as a Final Fantasy game or Dragon Quest, and it'll get the most exquisite marketing. It'll be painted on the side of a mountain or something. People will be able to see the advertising from space. And when it comes to their Western games, they don't advertise properly. They have, some of these games have controversies. The Deus Ex Mankind Divided situation was a joke. Square Enix really screwed that game over. But this Guardians of the Galaxy game, a game you can tell that the developers are so proud of. Like, whenever they talk about the game, they're so passionate. And it's like, that game is incredible. And people literally didn't know what the hell it was because Square Enix didn't advertise it properly. It barely got trailers on television. And now people are having this wave of joy over the game. It's now in Game Pass. People can experience it without worrying about spending money on an online service title that they may not play for months. Well, it isn't that. They're going to be playing this for like 25, 26, 27 hours and get a solid experience. And it just makes me sad because we may never see a sequel to this. You know, and I just look at games like Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy, like that game has some weird reviews. It has some hilariously bad writing. I'm even tempted to buy it just because of its crappy writing. And, that will probably get a sequel, even if it doesn't sell well. you know? And it's like, Square Enix just doesn't know what they're doing. They port some old games to Xbox, but we won't get new Final Fantasy mainline games. Yet we'll get Stranger of Paradise, which is a spin-off. And I don't know, man. Like, what's your thought on the whole, like, them treating their Western games differently? Is it just me seeing this? Am I reading too much into it?
No, I completely agree. There's something really odd. I'll put it that way about how the Western studios are handled. Like, games get next to zero marketing, or if they get marketing, it's very just minute, and they throw it into like throw it out there amongst the wolves in like a heavily packed quarter, like sink or swim, go. And then it's like, have you seen the other titles that are coming out right now? I mean, that game's gonna get killed because not because it's a bad game by any means, but because these games are really good and they're actually being marketed properly and people know what they are. And it's just EA has done the same thing several times. Other companies, it's just like it's infuriating when you basically set up a game of yours to fail, and then you moan about it, saying it didn't meet expectations. I'm like, what on earth were you expecting to happen? And on top of that, it's like, who's coming up with these numbers? Like, what on earth do you think this game's going to sell if you don't talk about it? Period. I mean, like, there are very few games you can just put out there point blank, not market, and people will buy. There are very few of those. And especially for a new IP or a reboot or something that it's not a mainline, heavily established brand, just throw it out there and have crazy expectations because we are Square Enix, we have brand power. Well, that's all fine and good, but if you don't actually do what you're supposed to do, it's not going to do anything. And then for you to throw your devs under the bus about it because it didn't reach your manufactured expectations, which weren't realistic to begin with, even if the quality of the title is outstanding, it's mind-boggling. And that's why, folks are really, pining for hoping Xbox can acquire Crystal Dynamics or Eidos or heck, Sony, anybody. Just like let the Western devs like either get a new management in charge of them to like where you have actual like somebody who's ingrained in what's going on there in charge of them and understand the situation and set up to succeed, or get them to some different place to where they can flourish because this ain't it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Microsoft thing or someone else picking them up. It's like, look at the developers making Contraband for Microsoft. Like, that developer made Just Cause. The Just Cause series was horrifically advertised by Square Enix. They were originally going to make a huge big budget film starring Jason Momoa. It never happened. It will never happen. But it's like Square Enix is weird, man. They've done this with almost every game. It's like look at Sleeping Dogs. They basically bought the rights to True Crime Hong Kong from Activision, renamed it, which it kind of needed to at the time. But like the studio barely got any support. Apparently, like from what I heard, like they got next to no resources right when they were coming to the second half of like development, and it's just like They just do this all the time. And then you have like something like Final Fantasy 16. I bet the marketing for that is going to be amazing. You're going to have posters on buses. Everyone's going to be talking about it. There'll be early demos. People will know what the hell it is. And then you have things like, Tomb Raider. I should say Rise of the Tomb Raider. Like, that game had a kind of a skirmish mode where you could actually buy card packs. Like, it made no sense in that game. A single-player action-adventure having microtransactions. Like, that was so forced. In a time when people are really against microtransactions. And, Deus Ex... Like, I put it like this. If people listen that's played RPGs before, traditionally you earn, like, level up points in an RPG, right? And you put them towards a skill, right? That's how RPGs work. Well, in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, they made it so rather than getting level up points every time you literally level up or finish a mission, they were called Praxis kits, you could actually buy them via a microtransaction. So if you spent money at the start of the game, you could unlock all of your abilities, which would kind of break the game. And it was bad. Like, I will complain about Square Enix because they do this a lot, Guardians of the Galaxy deserves a sequel. The last Deus Ex game deserves a sequel. We don't know what's happening with Just Cause as a franchise. And, like, look at Hitman, right? IO Interactive used to be under Square Enix. And with Hitman. Hitman 1 was well received. People didn't like the episodic stuff. The sequel comes out, and I think the sequel was published... I think it was published by Warner Brothers, but, like, that did better. And then the third game basically sold more than the first two games combined, and they had nothing to do with Square Enix. And it's like, as soon as people step back from Square Enix, they can make whatever game they want. And that's what's happened with Hitman. People love Hitman 3 and the world of Hitman and what it is now, but it's just a shame. I would love Square Enix to give their Western developers more freedom and advertising money because, man, like, I've never seen... Like, look at Uncharted and Gears. Look at how much money those games make. And look at the advertising those games get. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy should have had that level of advertising. It's a shame, man. It really is. And Logan, you really have to play it once you finish Elden Ring. Like, it's so good. The writing in that game... I put it like this. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, the movies. The characters in the game, in my opinion, are better. And I think those films are incredible. But yeah, have you got anything else to say on the topic before we move on?
No, I'm looking forward to playing it for sure, though.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Elden Ring because a lot of developers have been talking about it, and a lot of people are wondering, like, why is everyone talking about Elden Ring? Why is it selling so well? It sold 12 million copies in 3 weeks, a brand new IP. By a Japanese developer. People love it. It's predominantly single player. It has a multiplayer mode, yeah. But, like, I've never seen a game single player this sell. Like this that quickly. And, they did everything right. They showed advertising of what the game is. They let the consumers know what the game is. And they advertised it to people that weren't just FromSoft fans. They advertised it to RPG fans. People that like dungeon crawlers. It was... I'd say that's how you execute a single-player-centric, advertising campaign. So people love it. I love it. It's an incredible game. It has an incredible open world. It's amazing. Like, and I've seen people ask on Twitter, like, why is everyone talking about this game? And it finally occurred to me why this game is so good as a community thing. When Game of Thrones was on television, weirdly enough, also connected to George R.R. Martin, when Game of Thrones was on TV, it aired almost worldwide at the same time. It was 2 a.m. in the UK, and I think it was 10 p.m. in the US. Everyone was watching that online, and then everyone was talking about it that night and the next day on Twitter and Facebook or whatever. And it was a community thing. We were all experiencing this story together. And it occurred to me, the same thing's happening with Elden Ring. We're all getting our asses kicked by these bosses online. We're all understanding these memes, and it's a very community-focused thing where people are posting screenshots and videos, and we all get it, right? And people are discovering new things all the time about this game. Hell, I've put 38 hours into this game, which is a lot for me in 3 weeks. And I still have no idea how half the mechanics work. I'm running around with a crappy sword and a crappy shield, and I'm just getting on with it, And, like, I have to say, like, if people are remotely interested in this game even for the community aspect, today is probably the best time to get into it because people are just enjoying it so much. And like, how far are you into the game, Logan?
Oh, I'm 76 hours in, and I've been really, really enjoying it. It's my favorite From title for sure, and it's honestly one of the best games I've ever played. And it's just story, like all From games generally kind of have lore you have to find to kind of build the world, and this has that, but it's also more fleshed out to where the core pieces are just there, and then you piece things together. But and there's just so many different endings you can earn. There's so many optional bosses, and then like dungeons and items and gear and things to explore and see and do and characters to meet and side quests and customization is off the charts. And then like if you get bored with one build, like no, I'm tired of being a sword and shield guy. I want to be a mage. If you get a certain item and you beat a certain boss, you can go back to that place and, be reborn, quote unquote, and kind of refresh your skills and redistribute and have a new build if you want. And it's super fascinating, and I doubt anybody has the same experience as another person, as just there's a bunch of randomness to it as well. About I went in with this build and this happened to me, but they went in with this build and they had a different experience. And it's tough but fair. The Ash summons have helped a lot, and if you want to play with friends, you can summon folks, or if you want to play offline, you can, so you don't have to deal with invasions. It's it's a ton of fun. I'm currently a dual wielding katana guy, and I'm loving it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm basically just running around as a knight. I still have my beginning armor on, like because for some reason I've played 38 hours and I haven't found a single piece of armor that's better. I'm either unlucky or I'm just completely missing it. But I mean, the good thing about Elden Ring being so popular, there's guides for literally everything, written and in video format. And yeah, I mean, people can jump into this game never playing a FromSoft game before and kind of get it. The game is vague. It doesn't direct you like where you need to go. It kind of just vaguely points in a way, But like the combat in this game is incredible. The bosses are amazing, and you can call in help. Like there was a boss that was like this giant red fox that happened to have a sword and lightning, which I was screwed. I'm bad against magic powered people or like enemies, and like I was like I can't do this anymore. And what do you know? There was two summon logos on the ground, and I called in two people just from wherever on the planet Earth, and they were helping me, and they were helping us get past the magic, that was stopping us. And like I've had to do this maybe I think I've fought 19 bosses, I think, and I've maybe had help with three, you know. And again, the summons in general, like if you don't want to play with other people, you can call in summons. There's a jellyfish that you can call in, which is actually useful in some cases. You can call in a pack of wolves.
Super good.
Yeah, like, and there's apparently something called a mimic tier, which basically mimics you, but it's overpowered, although it did get patched out. Apparently it's nowhere near as powerful anymore, but like, people are finding all these interesting things, and all these developers are wondering, like, why is this game doing so well? You have games like Assassin's Creed that come out and Far Cry that didn't get this attention. It's because it's a game that works. It came out day one without a huge patch needed, and people love it, and that's what we need more of. We don't need NFTs in games. We don't need more microtransactions. All they need to do to make a game sell well is advertise it well, let the consumer know what the hell it is, and no big day one patch. Have the game work and not have it broken, and it'll sell. Like, Elden Ring is kind of basic when you compare it to a lot of other games when it comes to some aspects. The open world, it doesn't tell you what to do. The UI, there isn't really much one. But people are playing the game. There's people that play Call of Duty online playing this game. Hell, Dr. Disrespect, who basically plays Battle Royales all the time, is playing this basically every day, and you could tell he enjoys it. And this is his first FromSoft game. it's kind of weird seeing all these Call of Duty streamers play Elden Ring and they really like it, and it's different, you know. So if people want a different experience, I'd say get it. You know, it's the best time to hop on board. There's more logos on the ground now because the maximum amount of people are playing right now, as opposed to maybe 3-4 months from now. Because I played Dark Souls, the first game, that was on Xbox anyway, by them on the 360. Like I played that about 6 months after it came out, and like the community focus wasn't the same back then. You know, Twitter wasn't the same back then when it came to social media and stuff. But yeah, I mean, what a good game. Like FromSoft, they're going to make a sequel to this. They're already discussing making other forms of media. We're probably going to see a movie or a TV series based on this, which I'd be down for. You know, Elden Ring is good. Like the thing is, people look at this game that haven't played it and they think, I don't like Dark Souls. I've never played Dark Souls. I don't think I like this. Like for the open world aspect, it just makes the game more viable. Like in Dark Souls, for instance, when you first get to the main shrine, you basically can go two directions. Go down into the depths, into these dungeons, which I wouldn't recommend, or you can go up the stairs and towards a castle. Well, you've only got two options, so if you want to level up, you have to grind the same area over and over again. But if you're getting your ass kicked in Elden Ring, and you want to go to a new area, you can just go to a different area, maybe find some enemies that are your level, and grind them up. And maybe find some bosses that you can actually tackle, because there's been times I've walked like from a battle thinking I can't do this yet, and I've went back later on after gaining some more levels and some better swords, and I'm like, oh, it's easier now. So like I think if people are kind of leaning, you know, towards buying it, it's the best time. Like, and I've actually finally tried PvP in a FromSoft game, and when I say tried, I mean I actually invaded their game and I won. And like, as someone that doesn't play multiplayer much now, I actually had that sense of pride you get. Like, have you ever invaded anyone in multiplayer?
I have not. No.
Okay, well, I always find it really annoying, like when someone invades my game and I've got a lot of souls, and I'm like, how dare you do that to my experience? Well, I did that yesterday to them,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I kind of see why now. You know, the reward you get for actually beating someone isn't much. You get a rune arc, which I don't even know what the hell that does, but I'm going to use one later. But yeah, I think, you know, it's a great game. Like Ubisoft, Activision, although Activision did publish Sekiro, like, and the thing is that's interesting about this is that Elden Ring is pretty much one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. It's 10 out of 10 almost across the board. And then we have these rumors coming out that Microsoft's working with FromSoft on an exclusive. Like that's so interesting. Like, they made Dark Souls, they made a bunch of mecha games, they made Armored Core, they made Bloodborne, and they made Demon Souls, and it's like they have a formula that works. But if you look at all their games, they are critically acclaimed. Like Sekiro won Game of the Year from like 10 different outlets. And like, what's your thought on them making an Xbox exclusive? Which is, I know it's a vague rumor that's going around right now, but it's pretty interesting.
I would totally be day one down for that. Whatever they end up making, like basically anything they put out is gold. Like I've enjoyed everything they've made. Some more than others, but there's not been a single title I've played where wow, that was a bad game. I mean, everything has been at least good. And like they've made exclusive Xbox games before. If you go back to the OG, there's Otogi 1 and 2. So it's not unheard of for them to make one. And they also made Ninja Blade, which is on 360 but not backwards compatible, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I know there was once upon a time a rumor of a sci-fi game that we're making, maybe with Xbox. Maybe that rumor's evolved into something else, or maybe this is still the same one. I don't know, but I'd be down for a FromSoft Xbox game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because, you know, Microsoft, they took a back seat, you know, for a while when it came to, like, you know, working with other publishers and developers, because they were burnt out by the Crackdown situation and the stuff that happened with you know, Platinum's Scalebound. So like, it just goes to show that they are clearly willing to work with, you know, second party again, which is exciting, you know, because that just opens up the game to more possibilities. And the thing is, there have been rumors in the past that FromSoft's next game, which will be a Souls-like, that might be sci-fi. So FromSoft making a sci-fi game in that vein, like, that just gets me more excited. And the thing is, I think Microsoft do need a new FromSoft exclusive because, again, people love Demon Souls, people love Bloodborne, people need something like that on Xbox, and I think this would get that job done. As you were talking, I looked up, and it looks like Ninja Blade is backwards compatible.
It is?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a confirmation on that because the thing is, you can't really trust Google search that much. Yeah, it's backwards compatible. Huh. Well, there you go. People have access to an older FromSoft game. But yeah, it might be cheap, if people want something different. But yeah, it's an exciting time. Like, again, the game's doing well, people love it, and just developers need to learn. We want games that work day one, advertise them well. Like, Elden Ring. Look at Elden Ring's advertising. They had trailers showing you combat, exploration, PvP, all aspects of it. People understood what the game was. At the end of the day, is it really that hard to tell people what a game is? Because as vague as Elden Ring is, I have no idea what I'm doing. 38 hours in, and they sold me on it. And the experience is incredible. I'm getting my ass kicked all the time. All the time, and I can't stop playing. And I can't wait to get my ass kicked later. Like, it's good, It's gonna be a good game for months to come. And here's the thing, not a single microtransaction for the game. They haven't talked about expansions yet. They probably will get expansions at some point. They've done expansions in the past for Dark Souls, but like, man, like the sky's the limit with them. Like, they can make borderline masterpieces. Oh no, we can call this a masterpiece because the open world is just so interesting. Yeah, we'll have to move on. But yeah, Elden Ring. If you're on the fence and you're leaning towards getting it, I think you should get it now. Like, now's the best time. Oh, Joanna Darks in chat. Hey, we are good. If anyone's new to the show, please share. It really helps the channel out. YouTube sometimes does not share to people, which is annoying, but we'll get on with it. So Ubisoft have a summer event coming because EA's pulled out. We are not getting a game show this year by them, which is kind of heartbreaking because I wanted to see Dragon Age in action. So we may see that at somewhere else, but like, EA pulling out altogether, it kind of shows that we may not get anything from it. Like, we will talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in a bit, but like what's your thought on EA pulling out of the whole E3 summer showcase thing?
I'm not too surprised if they don't have a lot in the pipeline. I mean, the latest Battlefield's been a disaster, just to be blunt. It's been horrible, and they have a lot to fix and a lot of content to get out that they promised in a certain amount of time. So they're probably focused on that, and then their Star Wars games make more sense to be showing up at Star Wars Celebration, which we talked about last week as being a possibility, and it has since been confirmed that it will be showing up in May. So it makes sense for me for them not to have a EA Play this year, especially if Dead Space isn't quite ready for a big sit down and show a bunch of stuff, and if they don't really have anything other than Star Wars that's ready to roll.
Yeah, it's a shame because they have so much potential. Like, now that they are willing to work on single player games, and screw it. Before we talk about Ubisoft, we'll talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I first caught winds that the sequel was going to be shown this year about 5 months ago, and that's the reason why I've been talking about it a lot. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was incredible. Not only was its story good, its gameplay was amazing, but it was the game that made EA realize that single player games sell. It doesn't have a single microtransaction. It doesn't have any expansions or anything. It's a single player game completely, and it sold millions. I think it sold over 10 million, like, over the year that came out, and like, incredible game. It's also on Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate and EA Play, but like, that is my game of the year of that year. Like, you've played Jedi Fallen Order, yeah?
Oh, of course. It was my game of the year and one of the 5 best Star Wars games ever made. It's awesome.
Yeah, and funny enough, like, if people are playing Elden Ring and they like those game mechanics, they're probably going to like Jedi Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order is basically Dark Souls light, but Star Wars, and it just worked so well. Like, in my opinion, that game is a borderline masterpiece as well. But yeah, I think EA not doing it this year, it's a shame, because they have other Star Wars games in the works. They are making a third-person original superhero game. You know, apparently Star Wars Squadrons 2 is going to happen. And they have like 3 other Star Wars games in the works that have nothing to do with Jedi Fallen Order. And it's just a shame because they could have been like a big showcase this year. Dragon Age has been in development for years. That thankfully is single player only. Mass Effect is years away, unfortunately. Mass Effect, thankfully, is going to be Unreal Engine, but yeah, it's a shame about Jedi Fallen Order because, we will probably see that it's Star Wars. I know Jeff Grubb recently said that it's pretty much going to be there, so that, me and a few other people have said that it's going to be shown this year. It looks like it's pretty much all but confirmed now. And the thing is, the most eyes for Star Wars is Star Wars Celebration. And you were even saying last week, like, millions of people watch those streams and events, and that's where they showed gameplay, or the first trailer, shall I say, for the first game. And I love Jedi Fallen Order, and we're going to see more this summer. I think it's pretty much 99% likely we will see Jedi Fallen Order trailer this year. Now, when it comes to its release, I'm not entirely sure. The pandemic pretty much pushed development back worldwide across all games. Like, we will talk about Warner Brothers games in a bit, but some of their games were meant to come out in 2020, and they were pushed back to this year. So, games were put back about a year to 18 months in some cases, and 2 years in some cases. But I think there's a possibility we could maybe see Jedi Fallen Order 2 launch in November. Because not many games are going to be out in that time frame. We have Gotham Knights coming out in October, but I think it would be a big year for EA to get that game out because, again, they have no fall game. They have the sports games coming out. There's no Battlefield coming out this year. They still have to support the first game. Dragon Age definitely is not coming out this year. That's a while off. But I think that's coming this year. And again, Jedi Fallen Order, masterpiece in my opinion. I put that up there with Knights of the Old Republic. And Knights of the Old Republic is pretty much one of the best RPGs ever made. Just wondering, Logan, where would you put that up with KOTOR?
It's in my top 5 for sure of Star Wars games. I have Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and then Jedi Fallen Order and Republic Commando and Academy. Those are probably my favorite ones. And then, you have Rogue Squadron and Shadows of the Empire. There used to be so many really good Star Wars games. And then they kind of went through a dull period. But needless to say, it's one of the very best ever made. And that's saying something because some of those are some of the best games ever made, period. So definitely play it if you are one of the 5 people who have missed it somehow. It's in Game Pass through EA Access. Definitely play it. And it's canon completely, so the story matters for the sequel and in the overall grand scheme of the expanded universe under Disney now. So definitely play it and get ready for the second one. And I agree. I think November seems like a really good idea for that one. Maybe October or September if they want to bump it up a little bit to avoid Starfield, maybe. I mean, they're different. There's both sci-fi, but they're both different. But in case they want to kind of not step on toes, it wouldn't surprise me if it's September, October. But November seems like a pretty good idea too.
Yeah, and you were right. We used to get Star Wars games all the time. Like, during the original Xbox, GameCube, and PS2 generation, there were Star Wars games coming out almost every other month. Like, we got Star Wars, the Starfighter games 1 and 2. There was Jedi Academy in the sequel. Literally so many Star Wars games, and there were even more on PC because we had RTS games. There were multiple different types of strategy games, and I hope we get to that point again where we do see Star Wars games more regularly. And the thing is, we might actually see that because Ubisoft is making a Star Wars game, which we'll talk about in a minute, but. It's a good time for Star Wars fans. We have Lego Star Wars coming out in 2 weeks. which is a good time. And that game looks really good, I must say. But yeah, Star Wars games coming, looks good. And yeah, November, October, or even September, I think it'll drop. So yeah, Ubisoft, which was originally what I was going to talk about first. Their summer event is coming, and they have a lot of games to show, which is awesome. You know, they have a pretty interesting slate of games to come this year because they just dropped Assassin's Creed Rise of Ragnarok or whatever it's called, the big standalone expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is apparently good from what I've been told. They're coming out later this year with the Avatar game, and from what I can tell, this is going to be like the most ambitious big open world game Ubisoft have ever made, which has me excited. I loved Avatar. I loved Pandora in that movie. What are you looking forward to this game at all, Logan? I think Logan is muted. Okay, just wait till Logan jumps back in. But yeah, Logan, you might have to back out and jump back in. But yeah, Avatar, that comes out later this year. There are rumors that there's a standalone Assassin's Creed title coming out. And now I think this is true because one of the main characters from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that was, in fact, an assassin, is apparently getting his own standalone game. Apparently it's going to play up to pretty much how the first few Assassin's Creed games were, so it's actually going to feature an assassin doing assassiny things in stealth, and I think that has a lot of people excited because it's been so long since we've had traditional, how should I put it, Assassin's Creed. It's been a long time. I'd say the last time we had a traditional Assassin's Creed game was maybe 2010, 2011. It's been a while, but the fact that we're getting a smaller scale 30-hour game as opposed to a 100-hour or 110-hour game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla was so big, in my opinion. It was too big. Like, I'll put it like this, that's the only mainline Assassin's Creed game I've never finished, which is kind of sad because I consider myself a huge Assassin's Creed fan. I've read the books, I've read the encyclopedias, I know everything about those games, but when it comes to the past, few, I don't remember those game stories. Like Assassin's Creed Origins, amazing open world Egypt, fully realized in a AAA game for the first time, and it was incredible. But the story was okay, and then Assassin's Creed Odyssey dropped, where the gameplay was amazing. I think Logan's back.
Okay, sorry about that. My dog wandered out for a minute.
Okay, I was going to say, what's your thought on the whole, Avatar and, Frontiers of Pandora thing? Are you looking forward to that game at all?
Yeah, definitely. Avatar was super, ahead of its time when it came out, and I'm excited to see more of it. Side note, apparently we're going to be getting our first look at Avatar 2 with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse when that comes out. Apparently the trailer will be along with that, so stoked for that. And Phoenix Rising 2 is going to be awesome as well.
Yeah, Winter Soldier just said in chat, he uninstalled Valhalla. I can't blame him. As a diehard Assassin's Creed fan, I put maybe 30, 40 hours into it. Actually, no, it was probably more like 60, and I was just realizing I was getting nowhere. You have miles of nothing in that game. And the thing is, I will go back to it at some point and attempt to finish it, but Assassin's Creed went from this 30-hour, 35-hour game to 100 plus hours, and it lost all of its personality. And and the thing is, I say this right now, and I'm going to buy the next Assassin's Creed day one, regardless of what it looks like. I'm part of the problem. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, Immortals Phoenix Rising, that just leaks. Now, if no one has played Immortals Phoenix Rising that's listening right now, I highly recommend it. Now, it is going to be launching in Ubisoft Plus, or whatever its service called. They change the name of their service about once every 6 weeks, but that will be in the service. And a lot of their new games will launch in the service day one as well. Ubisoft Connect, or whatever it's called. But yeah, Immortals Phoenix Rising 2 is coming. Now, that news surprised me because I've not heard a single thing from Ubisoft or any leaks about this. But I'm mainly surprised because I thought the game didn't sell well. The game's incredible. It's basically ancient Greece, Zelda Breath of the Wild. But in this game, your weapons don't break. And, Shizno Elite just said, I disagree, AC is better now than ever. There are aspects of Assassin's Creed that are amazing. The combat now is the best combat. But when it comes to story, like, I remember Ezio Auditore della Firenze's, like, storyline from start to finish. I remember lines of dialogue. I remember the side characters. I remember everything about Assassin's Creed 2 through 4, almost like the back of my hand. But Assassin's Creed story over the past, 5 years, it kind of lost all of its charm. Like, I used to like hearing about the Templars versus the Assassins. But I mean, this is one of those things where the fan base is split. Like, the fan base for Assassin's Creed has been split since, I'd say, Unity. Like, people can't be, on the same page. But I mean, the thing is, Assassin's Creed, it has a huge audience. People will continue to play those, action RPGs and enjoy them. I'm going to buy the next Assassin's Creed game, and I'm going to buy the one after that. It's just that I prefer the direction of two, or I should say Assassin's Creed 1 through 4. But yeah, Immortals Phoenix Rising, it's basically Zelda Breath of the Wild set in ancient Greece, but your weapons don't break. And it's great. It was my game of the year for 2020, and I didn't expect that to happen. It's an incredible game. And the thing about that game, it did have microtransactions, but it wasn't forced. You can earn everything in the game, and it was just very well designed. It was a fun open world with a lot of personality, and I recommend it to people. Again, it has something like Elden Ring. Like, Elden Ring has like a very interesting open world. Well, Immortals Phoenix Rising had that as well, and yeah, I'm surprised and happy because I didn't think the game did well. Ubisoft never talked about it anymore after they sold the last expansion, and it's like, you've played that game, right? What was your opinion on it?
I think it's super cool. And I was, like you, I was kind of a little sweating it about not hearing anything about it because I was like, oh, great. This is going to be another one of those like a Child of Light where it was a fantastic, unique, new Ubisoft title. And it was awesome. People loved it. Yet it did the Square Enix did not meet expectations thing. And then you never hear about it again. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen. But I'm glad I was wrong, and we are getting a sequel, and I'm stoked for that, and that other Prince of Persia title spinoff, like the 2.5D kind of game, that should be really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that because I completely forgot about it. Ubisoft's year and like the games they come out with this year and what they're going to show is exciting because I think they're going to show us the new Splinter Cell this year, which is a remake of the original, but it's being developed by the team that made Splinter Cell Blacklist, which in my opinion is incredible. So it's good that they're making it. They have Avatar coming out. There's a standalone Assassin's Creed game coming out this year. And, they have their, free-to-play X-Defiant, which is kind of like COD. I think COD does need competition. I don't think this will be that, but I mean, hey, you can't really complain about more games, especially if it's free to play. But like, I think Ubisoft's gonna have a good year. Like I know they're having all these problems because like all this like stories are coming out that's kind of terrible. But when it comes to their game lineup, it's looking like a good year. And the thing is, they have an open world Star Wars game that we still don't know anything about, and I think we're gonna see some of that. Because again, they said news is coming in the following year, plus years or whatever. And yeah, I kind of like the idea of seeing an open world Ubisoft game. Like, what they're going to do with that? If they somehow make Coruscant open world, like, basically, I'm just pleading any developer to make Star Wars 1313 a reality. I'm still
Oh
so
no, you can't say that name.
like
No.
it's 2022 and I'm still salty that game got canned. Like, how dare they? Like, the thing is, I put that game up there with Firefly. Like, how dare you cancel that? Like,
I know it's blasphemous that got canceled. It's just
and the thing is, some gameplay leaked about that about a month ago, and it looked amazing. Like, and if people want to get the heart broken, it's on YouTube. It's about 2 minutes of gameplay, and yeah, it was Coruscant, and it looked amazing, and that was apparently running on like an early like Xbox One dev kit or something. But it's a shame. But anyway, Ubisoft making an open world Star Wars game, that's gonna be pretty cool. And Shizno just said in chat, Heartland, the Division, like spin-off or whatever that's going to be. Like the fact that they're going to be making a first-person Division game, that could be interesting. But yeah, Ubisoft, they're going to have a good year. And like you said, Prince of Persia's coming back, man. Like, they have the remake coming out for the first 3D game, which we haven't heard about in a while. I think we will be hearing about the release date at the summer event. And the 2.5D thing, like, that tells me that Ubisoft are willing to make small games again. Because, like you were saying, Valiant Hearts, like, that game was really good. And they came out with another 2D game as well. I can't remember the name of it, but, like they can make really interesting games all the way from AAA to indie-sized projects. And that's one of the reasons why I like Ubisoft games. They can make just crazy stuff and some stuff that you don't expect. And, like, we do joke, and the industry does joke about the cookie-cutter Assassin's Creed open-world Ubisoft formula. You know, Far Cry is like Assassin's Creed, but Far Cry is like, you know, Ghost Recon, and Ghost Recon is like Assassin's Creed. Like, they all kind of share the same components when it comes to, like, gameplay design. But all in all, I enjoy Ubisoft games. I buy them. I'm going to buy multiple Ubisoft games this year, and that will be the same thing every year going forward until they stop making games, which is never going to be never, you know. But yeah, we'll move on. But Ubisoft, that's going to be an interesting summer event. The Witcher 4 was announced randomly yesterday. CD Projekt Red just came out and said, look, we're working on the Witcher Saga, which is going to be multiple games, and we're moving over to Unreal Engine 5. Now, that surprised me a lot because their own tech, which they use in their engines, like, that's a good engine. Like, the thing is, Cyberpunk had its issues for many different reasons, you know, but, like, The Witcher 3, it was an amazing game. To this day, in my opinion, it still looks great. I've got Witcher 3 gameplay in the video as well. It's like, you've played Witcher 3, right, Logan?
Oh yeah, it's generational masterpiece. It and the second one are both just dear to me. I love them. They're just so it was like Game of Thrones, like levels of dark and political and mature fantasy, and decisions matter, and having to gear up for every different type of enemy fight, whether it's humans or monsters. It's just world everything. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, everyone talks about The Witcher 3 for being a masterpiece, and it is, but The Witcher 2, which is backwards compatible, it's also a 4K on One X and Series X. But yeah, The Witcher 2, incredible game. That, like you're saying, it's like Game of Thrones. Gritty, dark storytelling using, you know, political aspects of, like, you know, that kind of setting, you know, king versus kings. Incredible storytelling. And, you know, in my opinion, The Witcher 2 still looks good. And that came out in 2012 on the Xbox 360. And I think it was like 2011 on PC. But incredible game. But yeah, they're moving to a different engine. Kind of surprised me because their issues with Cyberpunk were more about game design choices. You know, they didn't know if the game was going to be third person or first person. They were designing for multiple different generations when, you know, let's face it, Cyberpunk, that clearly could not run on last generation consoles. They've patched it and it can, but, like, when it comes to game design in an open world, like, they were pushing the limits with Cyberpunk. And, you know, thankfully now it's on the new generation of consoles. It works now across the board. But yeah, what's your thoughts about them moving to Unreal Engine 5?
Yeah, when I first heard that they were switching engines, I was a little surprised because I mean, it was kind of like with Bethesda. They had been using the same engine since Oblivion for like ages, like a decade. And then they finally switched to a new engine for Starfield. So my guess is after the Cyberpunk kind of launch and uh, into next gen now, they wanted to, if we're gonna make a change, we should make a change now. So I
And Logan has cut out. Logan, you may have to restart. There you go.
you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Did you catch anything I said?
Just about how, like, you're surprised the change in engine.
Oh, basically, I was saying it kind of surprised me when I first heard it because it it's a lot like Bethesda where they were using the same engine since Oblivion, which is like a decade, which is 16 years old now. until they finally decided to use a new engine for Starfield and for Elder Scrolls 6. So to me, I was a little surprised, but I guess after the launch of Cyberpunk and them fully immersed into next gen, they wanted to go ahead and if we're making a change, we need to make a change now. So they went for a tried and true Unreal Engine. You're not gonna have too many problems with that. So it makes sense, but it was kind of like a little, interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising because, their games have a very particular look. And I think, when people want a new Witcher game, they're going to kind of want it to look like Witcher, 3 or like a more advanced version of it. But like that's the thing about Unreal Engine. Like apparently it's easy to develop on. They can make the game look like however they want. So I think it will still have, the similar art style to The Witcher 3. But yeah, it was surprising news. And the fact that they just announced it out of nowhere, I think it's because they've kind of fixed Cyberpunk. That game, it's kind of come and dusted. Like, it will continue to sell, and they're coming out with expansions still. And they even said, like, they're going to continue to use their engine on future expansions for Cyberpunk. And, going forward, we'll probably see future Cyberpunk games, which there will be future Cyberpunk games. They probably moved them to Unreal Engine as well, but yeah, surprising news. And the fact that we're getting another Witcher game, that isn't new news to anyone. We all knew a new game was coming, but the fact that they announced it as a saga, which got my interest because the Witcher 3 and the Witcher 2 are incredible. If you go from one game into the next and you do the choice thing where you set up, basically tell the NPC which choices you did in the sequel, like the sky's the limit with these upcoming games. Because the thing I'm not going to spoil the game for anyone yet. The Witcher 3 is going to get its next gen upgrade. If you haven't played it, wait a bit, play it on next gen. Incredible game. But like, I think them announcing it as a saga means they're actually just going to plan it out more, because these games aren't going to be based on the books. They are done with Geralt as a storyline. So it actually interests me more that they pretty much going to be writing original Witcher storylines, which is kind of cool because, again, they've kind of used most of the original source material and stuff, and then you have the TV series, which is going with like the first two books. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time, and again, we're gonna continue to get Cyberpunk expansions going forward now that they've fixed it all. I think for RPG fans, I think this is the news we wanted to hear. There has been some concern by some developers that it's a lot of developers are, I'm doing air quotes, consolidating, game software, because all these games now are going to Unreal Engine. But if it's a tried and true formula and it works, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, just use it. Like, it's developer friendly. I put it like this: when Jedi Fallen Order came out, the first question people asked was like, "What engine's it on? Is this Frostbite?" No, it's Unreal Engine. Like, that news alone gave random people that don't follow gaming news, it lifted a weight off the backs. They could enjoy, the excitement a little bit more. So it just goes to show that changing engine can affect how people think about game development. You don't have to be a game developer to know that the tools for some engines are crap. Frostbite didn't have a third-person camera ever, and then BioWare had to make one. Like, that's ridiculous. So I can only imagine like them wanting to push the technology forward when it comes to RPG and game design, but maybe use an engine that works, because their engine they've been using for a long time. They could have spent billions reiteration on a new engine, but what's the point when they can just license out an engine? So I think it's a good decision overall. And again, it will still probably have that Witcher 3 look, which in my opinion, it will need that. So we had the Hogwarts Legacy thing. PlayStation State of Play happened last week. We got 16 minutes of gameplay of Hogwarts Legacy. Now, before I go into the details, Logan, did you watch it?
I was not able to watch it when it came on, but I'm super stoked for it.
Right, so this is the game Harry Potter game fans have been wanting for decades. There was a game that came out in like 2002 or 2003 for the original Xbox, GameCube, PS2, Wii, not Wii, PC, and that was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It was kind of open world, and it was pushing the hardware at the time with a small budget. It was basically open world Hogwarts to a degree. You had all these side quests, main quests. You could do Quidditch. There was all these different things you could do, and it was kind of giving people this feeling of like being a student at Hogwarts. That's what people have been wanting, and we've never had that in a AAA game form. During the last generation, we got one Harry Potter universe game, and that was Lego Harry Potter, the collection remaster. So, in all the Harry Potter games before that, were literally movie-based titles. They had tiny budgets, they didn't review well, a lot of people didn't buy them, and, they just pretty much existed as movie titles. And this game, which I've been talking about on podcasts, this podcast, Boom's podcasts, Xbox podcasts, Mad's gaming podcasts, like I've been talking about Hogwarts Legacy since 2019 because I've seen quite a lot of gameplay, and some of the stuff I've seen they still haven't shown off yet. The stuff I have talked about was during that event, and it's kind of indication as well because people sometimes don't believe crap I'm saying. Well, there you have it. But we got 16 minutes of gameplay, and it was incredible. The game looked better from when I originally saw the gameplay, and it is basically the game people have been wanting for decades. It's a Magic School RPG. It's got a character creator. All of Hogwarts you can explore. There's side quests, main quests. You can brew potions, herbology. You go to all your different classes and learn new spells, and it's like, this is the game, people. Like, there's so much hype for it. Like, it's kind of odd because, like, again, people have had this vision in their head for decades of what they want from their ideal Harry Potter universe game. And that thing they showed was exactly what we wanted. That's why I've been losing my mind. Like, even though I've seen a lot of that gameplay, like, we're getting that game this year, and that's exciting. Have you seen the films at all? Are you a fan?
Oh yeah, I've seen them. My sister's the one that's obsessed with Harry Potter in the family, but I've seen them and I enjoy them. So I'm looking forward to it, and the idea of going to the School of Wizardry and learning, and doing all the years as a student, and maybe doing Quidditch or any of the other side quests and characters and stuff. It looks like the nirvana of Harry Potter experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is going to be a big RPG in general. Like this year, by the way, this year in general, incredible for RPGs. We get Dying Light, which is an RPG. Elden Ring, Starfield's dropping this year. Gotham Knights, yes, that's an RPG that drops this year. And then you have Hogwarts Legacy, and like, I think Game of the Year lists is going to contain a lot of RPGs for people. But yeah, I mean, this game has fully open world Hogwarts. The complete surrounding areas is fully open. The Forbidden Forest, open. Hogsmeade, the town near Hogwarts, that's there. Diagon Alley is in the game, but it wasn't shown there. It's been in some press material. But yeah, all these different areas are in the game, and it looked incredible. And the thing is, you mentioned Quidditch. Like, Quidditch was a crappy mini game on that old Harry Potter game I mentioned, and it was kind of crap. It was, the technology was limited at the time, but they showed off, flying on a broomstick gameplay, and there was maybe like 2 seconds where you see a character wear a Quidditch uniform. I'm just nerding out over Harry Potter. It's like this is the game people want. I saw Colt Eastwood. He's getting the movies and watching them for the first time because I take it he's interested in the game. And the thing is, a lot of people looked at that game and that gameplay and thought, maybe I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but that RPG looks good. Because the way they presented that world and that gameplay, that was basically showing all the Harry Potter fans like myself, like, this is that game. But it's also made a lot of people that aren't Harry Potter fans think that looks like a good RPG. And they've accomplished their mission with that. Square Enix, that's how you advertise a game. A lot of people didn't know what Hogwarts Legacy was until they put out those 16 minutes. Like, that's how you convey what a product is. You show them it. We know what that game looks like now. And that game's going to sell millions. I'm not going to talk about the crap that, the creator of Harry Potter said in the past, like, we keep it all gaming here, but like that game looks incredible, you know. It's a deep RPG. Again, a character creator. People have been wanting a character creator in a Harry Potter style game for decades. You can make the character whatever you want. And the thing is, you know, this is a deep RPG. I think this is going to be different for people. We haven't had an RPG set in a magic school. If you really think about it, we get medieval RPGs all the time. We get sci-fi RPGs now and then. But a magic school RPG where you have to go to your classes and stuff, like, this is a dream game for a lot of people. And the thing is, this is going to sell millions. Like, the end of this year is ridiculous already when it comes to RPGs, and there's games that are still going to be announced. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, man. You know, I've just realised I've been nerding out about Harry Potter games. But the thing is, we've gone an entire generation without any, and then the generation before that, we had terrible, like, absolutely, other than Chamber of Secrets on the original Xbox, like, the last few Harry Potter games were, we had a Kinect game that didn't work apparently half the time, and then we had Deathly Hallows Part 2, which was like 10 hours long, and apparently it was terrible. Like, so, like, people are going nuts because looks like a good game, and it's what people have wanted. And, you know, I'll shut up now because, again, Harry Potter, I dig it. I'm a nerd, man. If you notice, if you follow me on Twitter, follow me on this channel, like, I talk about Star Trek, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. You know, these are the things that influence what types of games I like, you know. I love The Witcher because I loved Lord of the Rings, you know. That will go towards other stuff as well. Yeah, we'll stop talking about Harry Potter now.
Man of culture.
Yeah, the thing is, right, nerd culture. Everyone's a nerd now, right? You know, like, there's people that like all sorts, but like in 2022, it's acceptable to be a nerd. Like, it is pop culture, you know. We were all literally, like, 1 billion people watched Game of Thrones. Like, that was the nerdiest thing on television. It was dudes with swords and stuff. Like, anyway, we'll move on. Now, Casey Hudson came out yesterday and basically talked about his game. And yeah, so the creator of Mass Effect, Casey Hudson, the man himself. I will always respect anyone that's tied to Mass Effect. You know, they updated the website. He works at a new studio now called Humanoid Studios. And they are coming out with a brand new IP. It's a AAA sci-fi narrative-driven game, and they put out new pieces of concept art. Now, it kind of had this very 60s-ish vibe when it comes to sci-fi. So if you think Logan's Run and stuff that came out like then, like, you know, Lost in Space, kind of had that vibe going on. And yeah, it's just the fact that we have a new AAA, new IP, sci-fi game coming out by the creator of Mass Effect, and to me, that's more exciting than anything. Like, what's your thought on this whole, like, you know, game announcement without announcing the thing?
Oh, I'm so stoked for it. Not only was he involved in Mass Effect, he was also on the original team for designing Knights of the Old Republic. So this guy is revered in sci-fi lore and sci-fi creations and worlds. And I know BioWare has had its ups and downs towards the end of his tenure, but you know, you can attribute that to a lot of things. But I really respect his work and the fact that this is made up of veterans that know what they're doing, that are passionate about sci-fi. I'm super stoked for it. I like the vibe. And you know, tinfoil hat time, but this is a studio I'd keep an eye on for a potential down the road for a major company to have interest in, especially because it has high profile people. They're former vets. They're building a sci-fi RPG. It checks a lot of boxes, so I would definitely be keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is, that topic was eventually going to come up. Like, you know, Casey Hudson has a new game coming, new studio. Who's going to buy it? You know, the people are already making jokes about that. But I mean, it's a good point. Like, you know, a lot of, like, you know, ex-BioWare, you know, Mass Effect 1 through 3 staff work there. They are a prime studio to pretty much pick up in the future. But I mean, the fact that they're making a new IP is interesting. They've already labeled it as a multi-platform title, so we don't know what's going on there. But like, the fact that you were saying, like, he was involved with KOTOR as well, like some of the most influential RPGs ever made. The dude's making a new game, you know, and To me, that has my attention. I'm already sold. Like, we haven't seen a single frame, seen any gameplay, a name, a logo, a PNG, a GIF, nothing, and I'm sold. I'm buying it day one. Like, I don't care. The dude's a genius. Like, they created a new sci-fi universe with Mass Effect that is as interesting to me as Star Wars. Like, I can talk about Star Wars and Star Trek all day, the games, movies, television, everything, all day. But Mass Effect, in my opinion, is just as rich as a universe. Like the characters, the planets, everything about Mass Effect is interesting. And I will praise Mass Effect all day. And the thing is, a lot of people were saying on Twitter, like, I don't trust this game because of Andromeda. That's actually a good point. However, he was barely involved. He left BioWare when they started development on that. He was actually working at Microsoft for a while. And then he came back to BioWare after doing a stint on some tech stuff for Microsoft. So, I wouldn't worry about that. In Anthem, look, Anthem's game design and problems had nothing to do with who was working on it. The problem with BioWare and their game design, and this is a different rant, is that they pretty much don't have much structure for development like other game studios do. Other studios make games from start to finish. They know what they're doing. They have a roadmap, right? BioWare don't really have a roadmap for their games. Mass Effect 2 is considered a masterpiece. It's one of the 10 out of 10 games in my opinion. But the development for that game was hell. 90% of that game was pretty much pulled together last minute. And what we got somehow worked. It's called that BioWare magic. And I'm doing air quotes. BioWare magic. One of the developers... If I find the link for this, by the way... one of the developers from BioWare actually talks about the game design and how development is over at BioWare and how it's kind of messed up and how, like, it doesn't make sense. Well, I wouldn't put that down to certain staff members. That's pretty much just, a community thing or, a team-based thing. But, like, I wouldn't worry about it. Casey Hudson making a new game, probably going to be Unreal Engine like everything else. And, it's a good sign. More new IP is what we need because we just get sequels all the time otherwise. But yeah, that's an exciting thing in my opinion. Right, we'll move on because you mentioned this and I had no idea this was a topic. Achievement system. Now, I can kind of guess where you're going to go with this because I've seen other people mention this in the community, so I'll just get my 10 cents out of the way first. Xbox achievements. When they first went on stage at E3 2005 or whatever it was, and, Jay Allard was sitting on stage, wearing a blazer over his hoodie as it was, because it was 2005 and people did that. When they start talking about achievements, I really didn't have any idea what the hell they were talking about. And then, one of my friends got an Xbox 360 just before me, and he was explaining achievements to me, and I was like, that's actually really cool. And when I got my Xbox 360 and I unlocked achievements in some games, I was like, oh, I kind of get this. And, you have some endorphins release in your brain when you get an achievement and you hear that sound. You're like, that's nice. And you unlock another achievement. It's like, I kind of get that. And now you have people that have millions of gamer score. It's a cool thing. I like achievements. So my thought on achievements is, I think it's a must thing. I think Nintendo should do achievements in the future. My thoughts on achievements right now on Xbox, I'm completely fine with them. I don't need anything to change. The number one reason I do not like trophies on PlayStation is because the way they do platinums, if you unlock everything else, you get a platinum. And that thing is like, you're basically saying, to get this one thing, you have to do every other achievement. And there's a lot of games out there that have, like there was some Ubisoft games, it's like become rank number 1 in the world on the leaderboard. I think it was Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare 2. It's like, not many people have that achievement. And it's like, I don't like platinums for that reason. But, again, I'm just one person. So, for me personally, I'm perfectly fine with achievements. You have the diamond achievements when you get a rare achievement. Achievement art, in my opinion, is the only thing that needs to be corrected. You have companies like Ubisoft and I think EA do it sometimes where achievement art will just be logos behind a single image. And it's like, please stop doing that. You're a video game developer. You have access to concept art. Hundreds of thousands of images you have that you can use as achievement art. So in my opinion, I'm fine with it. That's just my 10 cents. Anyway, Logan, the floor's yours.
Well, thank you. I agree that I think for the most part it's a good system, and I remember when I first the first 360 game I played, it was Hexic too, and I getting achievements. I was like, what is this thing popping up? And then it's like, oh, I got points for this or this, and then you get hooked on it, and you're like more and more and more, and then it adds a whole new layer to the game because a whole bunch of different games it gave you something else to do or try to hunt down and accomplish. Like I remember, like in Dead Rising, it had the original one had that achievement for killing like 53,000, like 700 and so many zombies or something like that. Something oddly specific, which was like the population of that town, like Williamette or whatever. And they were creative and fun, and I think they're an important part of what Xbox does. PlayStation, what I do like about theirs is I do like the platinums personally. Like the idea that yes, I have done every single thing that you have asked me to do in this game from a side perspective, and now I'm given the platinum as I've 100%ed this thing. There's something special about it. I agree that I think there should be a way. I know a lot of people have brought it up. Is to separate DLC achievements from main game achievements because what if the person doesn't play the DLC or what if the person only does this or that or what if this guy's an online focused person or what if this person doesn't play online at all yet they're getting hosed on their achievement points or percentage because they don't do that mode. And then the rare achievements are awesome, but and it'd be super cool if they could somehow find a way to reverse engineer or somehow put achievements on OG titles. Because personally, it doesn't bother me at all that they don't have them because I grew up with them, I'm used to them, I love them. But um, it would for some people that are what more versed in the modern gaming where achievements are like basically just expected. I think it would add a level of intrigue to some of those titles if they could somehow add them, especially for the first party games. Then again, there's issues and stuff, and some of that might be just more of a hassle than they want to deal with. But at the end of the day, it's something that people on the team have brought up repeatedly as they're looking at. Well, sooner or later it reaches like it's been 7 years of we're looking at some things for it or doing something, and they haven't done jack about it and about since the rare achievements. So I it's not a deal breaker. It's an ultimate first world problem kind of thing, but I think it would be nice and a sign of good faith if they would actually do something with it.
You know, you saying that, I really had no idea about, like, it never once occurred to me. You're right, by the way. Like, no, like having to separate. They should separate, DLC. Like, I never really thought about it before, but you do have a point. Like, so if you play Batman Arkham Knight, like, it isn't just 1,000 G, it's 2,000 G. Like, 1,000 of that is DLC, and if you don't play that DLC, you're right. Like, it's classed as like a negative. I've never really thought about it before, and now that you mention that, I kind of want that. I want to be able to separate them, and that's a good point. Developers are limited to the amount of achievements they can put in expansions or whatever type of DLC it is. So having separate lists or way to have like categories, yeah, I think they should do that because again, like I do not buy like expansions of certain games. So why should I have to see I have let's say 600 gamer score out of I don't know 1,300 instead of 1,000. So yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like, and I kind of want that now. Microsoft, get on it, chop chop. But yeah, I kind of like the idea of that, and I can kind of see the appeal from wanting a platinum on Xbox. It kind of makes sense, now that you mention it. Again, I'm fine with as it is now. But you mentioned the original Xbox thing, and that's a good point. Like the BC team have done wonders. We have 4K, 60 frames, 120 frames in some cases. Like, could we get achievements on original Xbox games? And that's a good point. And I had a theory about this a while back. If you do an Xbox Game Pass quest, you load up a game, and let's say the Game Pass quest is kill 3 enemies in, let's say, I don't know, Ori Will of the Wisps, right? Well, I've always wondered, and they've done this with the Xbox 360 games in the past. Like, I've always wondered, how did they do stat tracking in a game they haven't made? Like there was one last week for Dishonored. Get caught by 3 enemies in Dishonored, and you can get that within minutes, by the way. But like I've always wondered, like how does Microsoft for Game Pass quests do stat tracking? So I wondered, like, could they not do stat tracking the way they do Game Pass quests to do achievements? Because you're right, a lot of people will only play games if they have achievements. So if they put achievements in something like Knights of the Old Republic, I think a lot of people will be picking that up again, especially that we don't have the access to the port. But yeah, that's a good point, man. Anyone over at Microsoft that listens to this, you do stat tracking in games. Could that not be applied to backwards compatible games for achievements? Just a theory, I would love to be able to play OG games, and get an achievement now and then. I think that would be awesome. And there's a lot of original Xbox games that I think would suit achievements. So yeah, I mean, I think thinking about it, I think they should do some stuff because again, achievements have pretty much always been the same. Achievements have been the same since 2005. They upgraded to doing rare achievements in 2017 or something, and it's been the same since. And I think the amount of teams they have on stuff over at Microsoft, like, why not just do something like this just for the fans? Because there's people that dedicate their gaming time to earning achievements. People have made careers online by earning achievements. Like, there's people who basically make, videos about earning achievements. So it's like, it makes sense to try and change it over time and upgrade it. So I agree, Microsoft should get on with that. And that kind of moves us on to the next topic. Game DVR. Now, Logan, what do you want to say about this first? Because I think we could both rant about this.
Basically, my first thing is them getting rid of the Twitter upload directly thing. Kind of, it really irked me and a lot of people in the community. Once again, it's a big first world problem kind of thing. But I mean, the fact that they've had it since the Xbox One generation, where you can just easily share, upload to Twitter, and then boom, your pic or your clip or whatever from your game is up on Twitter, has hashtags, everything. It's free marketing for the game. I mean, if you're not going to put photo mode standard in your games, then why on earth would you take away photo mode in essence? People just grabbing a screen from their game and sharing it and sharing something they're passionate about. Why would you just yank that? And I know that you can technically go to the app and have it download to the app after you've uploaded it to the cloud, and then you can go from your app to share it to Twitter, and then you can go to Twitter and do this or this. But that's a bunch of extra steps, and ain't nobody got time for that kind of. I mean, it's okay, but it's kind of just a pain, and the DVR itself has been really spotty as is. It's not been great. Like the achievements, they've been saying for years they're going to fix it, and it still is not great. So just another one of those things that are kind of just it simmers below the surface, but it kind of boils over every once in a while. And just yanking the Twitter thing, and especially when you just made these bloody new controllers that have a share button on the front of the controller, as in this is a next gen controller. It has a share button for a reason. Why do I use the share button? To upload my pictures to Twitter and things, because I'm not using my phone all the time while I'm playing games. And the fact that you yank that basically means I have just an extra little button on the front of my controller for grins and giggles. It just, I don't know. It's just, it kind of irritates me a little bit.
You have a lot of good points, and they're actually correct. Before I talk about my thought in the situation and what they need to do, I'm going to tell people how I share stuff, because I do the extra steps. I don't know why, sometimes I think I might have OCD or something. But basically, since 2017, I have OneDrive on my phone. I upload my screenshots and video to OneDrive. I download to my mobile. I trim or cut or whatever I want to do with that footage, and then I upload straight to Twitter. And the reason I do that is that whenever you share something from Twitter, like a video, I'd say 90% of the time I'd get the error message. So I just start sharing from my phone. And for me, it became normal. That's how I just do it. Now, I'm not defending them having lack of options. I'm not doing that. I'm saying that's just how I do it. Having a direct way to share to Twitter is important. It's free advertising at the end of the day. A lot of developers, and I'm talking to 2K and, Take-Two, they block game capture in a lot of their games. Yet you can record their games on PlayStation. That ain't right. So Microsoft needs to stop that from happening. Stop letting certain companies just outright block games. At least just block the audio if you have licensed music. But Microsoft does need to add more. DVR functionality is important. Again, like you're saying, it's free advertising. We like to upload our clips and screenshots. It's a good way to get footage. Capture cards are relatively expensive if you look at it, and capture cards don't work all the time, And the thing is, what's wrong with having more options, when it comes to the direct upload to Twitter thing, the only thing I could think of is why they remove it is it has something to do with Twitter's back-end APIs. So, and I could talk about this when it comes to Twitter in general. I used to use a third-party Twitter app called Tweetbot, and that was basically exactly like Twitter. The only difference was it would give you a bunch of statistics, amount of replies, likes, retweets, how many people have seen that post, basically without having to click on the details option on a tweet. It would just give you all that, and even a combined number every day. And it would actually post videos faster to Twitter than regular Twitter. So anyway, when Twitter updated their API 2 years ago, it literally killed off 90% of the features on Tweetbot. So I basically deleted the app. There was no point of using Tweetbot because it was no different than regular Twitter. It just had no stats anymore, which was the reason to use Tweetbot. And you had to pay for that app at the time. And I stopped using it. So the only reason I think is that they would get rid of this is that Twitter's back-end APIs is stopping Microsoft from directly uploading footage to Twitter. That's the only thing I can think of, because again, you can directly upload screenshots and video from Nintendo Switch. You can do the same on PlayStation. So I can't imagine, if Microsoft's the only one that's having to stop it, that doesn't make sense. Twitter is a massive platform for people to advertise. It's free advertising. If you go out there and post screenshots of a game you're playing, free advertising. And the thing is, these game companies love it. When I post screenshots and it gets some attention online, game developers pay attention to that. They love people posting screenshots. It doesn't matter if the game's small or big. They love it. So them pulling out the option to directly upload is bad. They shouldn't be doing this. And, that goes into the other upload options. Unless you have an external hard drive attached with at least 250 gigabytes of space, you can record 1 minute at a time, 1080p footage. That is a joke. It's a joke. When we first picked up our Xbox Series consoles, we could record without the hard drive attached up to 2 minutes, and now it's 1. That's a pain, man. As someone that captures gameplay footage to make YouTube content, such as, topical videos and YouTube right now, I can only record a minute at a time. That is absolute insanity. I think the Microsoft software team, they've done great over the years when it comes to the game's backwards compatibility, features that are quality of life. But when it comes to their DVR functionality, I don't know what the hell's going on. The thing is, Microsoft, they've made editing software in the past, so can they not put those people on Xbox and make something? We used to have Upload on Xbox, which was basically a simple editing tool where you can make content. That isn't a thing anymore on Xbox Series consoles, and it's going forward, you're right, Microsoft has been saying for years, we're going to do something about it. Well, when? We need stuff. Again, 1 minute of 1080p capture on the internal hard drive or SSD, that's ridiculous. We need more options. I could plug in a terabyte hard drive and use that as a hub, but it's not ideal. It doesn't suit everyone's needs. Not everyone has a spare hard drive to use for screenshots and videos, and even then you're limited to what type of like content you can post. People can only record HDR content sometimes. Sometimes when you post gameplay, it's super faded. Thankfully, there are ways around that, which I'll talk about later. But it's like DVR on Xbox is broken in some way. I put it like this: if people search, get bored at some point, if you'll notice that the sound on some of my Dying Light clips on Twitter is out of sync, and that's because there's a bug with the game DVR where it literally makes the audio out of sync with like 2 seconds, and it's super annoying to me because I look at that and I'm thinking that is not a pleasurable viewing experience, having the audio out of sync. It doesn't sound right. There is a way around it, and I'll post that on Twitter later because it's a bit of a complicated thing, but I don't want to go on about it tonight. But yeah, you're right. Game DVR, it needs to be fixed. They need to go in, give us more options, because again, PlayStation, they have Share Factory. They have a bunch of editing functions on there. Granted, Xbox has had their way to share to your mobile quicker and longer, but it's like game DVR on Xbox should be in a better state. They have the most powerful console on the planet. They have some amazing games coming. Don't they want us to show that on Twitter? Like, I don't know. Have you got anything else to say on this topic before we move on?
No, I just we generally speak really, really positive of Microsoft, and I know this is an Xbox podcast, and I'm definitely all for them, and I love them, and I give them praise when they deserve it, and most of the time they do. This is just one thing that's just really weird, that it's been for years this way. The achievements, and then some other things that have been talked about. Oh, we'll get around to it, or we're working on it. But then it just it's like crickets. Like you just don't hear anything about it. So I don't know if this is irksome to you as well. Then just let them know that's how you get the ball rolling on these things. Be respectful, but let your voice be heard and say, "Hey, this is important to me. You yanked this. Why? Can you please put it back, or give me a good reason why it's not there anymore and what you're doing instead?" Like, remember when they abruptly changed the price of Xbox Gold and basically made it the worst deal in gaming? Everybody got on them and hauled their butt to the fire on it. And they, in less than 24 hours, changed it and said, "You know what? You're right. That was bad." And then they fixed it. So just let your voice be heard, but be respectful.
Yeah, I mean, I've always understood, like, when it comes to like on content, like, people just don't like it when you speak negatively sometimes, And the thing is, I post Xbox content almost exclusively, be it in my videos and podcasts. Like, it's pro Xbox. Like, I'm an Xbox guy. I'm a content creator that focuses on Xbox. I don't crap on any of the companies. They all should be around. We need them. And the truth is, like, I like Xbox. They're in a great position now. They've been my preference for 2 decades. Over 2 decades now. And it's like, I think Microsoft's in the best place they've ever been when it comes to games, hardware, features, and they can still do better. PlayStation is in a great place. They can still do better. Nintendo's in a great place. They can still do better. You can ask for stuff and be respectful. Like, I don't really bash developers or, be rude to them. I just tell them, hey, this should be a thing. It would be nice. And at the end of the day, I think all the big three, they're in a great place right now. Like look at like how many studios Microsoft has now. Xbox, PlayStation just picked up some studios. Nintendo's working on a ton of games people want. We all getting the stuff we want. It's okay to ask for features, and like, again, DVR is the big one. A lot of people I see on Twitter that post video and screenshots. We just want more, and we'll just end that there. We'll move on to the next topic. So, Microsoft apparently working on a new piece of hardware. Now, this rumor's been around for a while, but, I think it was Xbox Era that came out about it and talked about it, and it's like, there's been this rumor for years that Microsoft is working on alternate pieces of hardware, and apparently this project is called Project Keystone. Now, I do not think, in any level, this is a mid-gen refresh. It's too early. We don't need mid-gen refreshes with these consoles, and I'll get into that in a minute. these consoles are very capable. The software that's, the developers use to make games is getting better. We're going to see better looking games, better performing games over this generation than we see right now. And the games we already see and play right now already look amazing and perform amazing. So the games are going to look better and perform better without needing new hardware. This isn't the previous generation where the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, that hardware was basically 2010 PCs. We needed mid-gen refreshes because 4K TV adoption went up and skyrocketed in 2016 and 2017. 4K content was becoming more of a thing, so it made more sense to get hardware out. There is no reason for Microsoft or Sony to upgrade their hardware. Will we see slim consoles down the line? 2-3 years down the line? Absolutely. I 100% believe by 2024, we'll probably see a slim of each console. And that's it. I don't think there'll be any change of RAM, storage, or maybe storage, but I don't think there's going to be more powerful consoles at all. What I will say is that this being called Project Keystone, Microsoft has said in the past they are interested in making streaming sticks. There are millions of people out there right now that have access to televisions that aren't smart devices. So a lot of these people, they plug in Roku devices. They plug in Apple TVs. Basically, small streaming sticks and streaming devices that are inexpensive, and you can just buy them in the small. And I think Microsoft's making a streaming stick. This rumor's been around for years, but now more than ever makes sense because they have adoption to a service called Game Pass, which they didn't have when they were originally working on the streaming stick back in 2014 or 15. So it makes sense. They get a streaming stick out there to millions of homes because, again, Microsoft wants as little barriers as possible between you playing their games, and a cheap streaming stick solves the issue. They don't need to put Game Pass on other platforms if it's already on smart TVs via apps, and those people that don't have smart TVs could buy a streaming stick. It's like, well, what's your thought on the whole streaming stick new hardware thing?
You make a lot of good points about it, and I agree. I don't think I would be floored if it was a mid-gen update. One, it's too soon. Two, nobody can bloody get their hands on these chips anyway to make the consoles. Yet you want to upgrade it and make it even more complicated and get a refresh out when you can't even get enough of these consoles in the hands of people in general, to where PlayStation is basically extending the life of the PS4 against what they originally planned because of the chip shortage and semiconductor this and that and all that's going on in the world. Yeah, I would be floored if it was mid-gen update. I wouldn't shock me if we got that eventually, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. As for a dongle stick or streaming stick, I could totally see that. Makes a ton of sense. Like if they had kind of a Roku Xbox device where you just plug in and go and just have your controller, kind of like almost like a Stadia in a way. Or if it was an xCloud device or like an Xbox Switch type thing would be amazing. But personally, I'd bet on it being a streaming stick because at the end of the day, Xbox is an ecosystem. It's not just hardware. So it wouldn't shock me if they make the sticks and try that way to get into homes, or that they've been rumored for years to be working with Samsung on getting it basically xCloud installed or Xbox Game Pass installed into TVs to where you can just play directly with a TV if you have a controller and account. So it seems like a no-brainer to make a streaming stick.
Yeah, I mean, the streaming stick seems like the safe bet, and the thing is, people have all these ideas of what this could be, but if you look back multiple generations ago, like, do you know during the Xbox 360 generation, we were going to get an Xbox Mini that would only play indie games. It was going to have a less powerful GPU, but it would complicate development, and, developers would basically have to make a game for two different consoles back when they were using PowerPC. Architecture, which was a complete mess, but compared to modern PC design. But yeah, it's strange, man. The thing is, a lot of people I've seen are wanting an Xbox handheld. I don't think Microsoft's going to do that because again, I've been using XCloud on my mobile phone. Right, I was playing Dishonored. I think it was Dishonored, yeah, and it was fine. It was a smooth experience, and like my Wi-Fi connection isn't exactly the best. So to me, it makes sense. Um, I think a streaming stick, that's something you can that's a stocking filler. That's a gift you can get someone. Uh, you know, I've already seen people talk about mid-gen refreshes. It's like no, we in the middle of a chip shortage. People can't buy Xboxes and PlayStations as it is. Like it's hard to find these consoles. So at no point in the next year, 2 year, three, hell, people can clip this. I do not think we will see mid-gen refreshes at all, at all. Slims absolutely. Hell, I still have my Xbox 360 Slim still plugged in. It still works like a charm. But yeah, Slims. I'd be interested to see what a Slim of an Xbox Series X would look like. That would be pretty interesting. But like all in all, I think we'll just see Slims and a streaming stick. I think a streaming stick later this year would make sense because again, the chip shortage is going to be going on for a while. I think a lot of people that talk about mid-gen refreshes don't realize that these chip shortages are going to be around for years. Semiconductor development went down the pan during 2020. Like, people are struggling to make cars, microwaves, pretty much anything that has the chips. Like, these things are hard to get. I'm surprised Apple can still make mobile phones by the millions, but that's Apple. But yeah, these chip shortages are going to last for a while. It's going to impede development of hardware across the board, across all aspects of tech. But yeah, these will I promise these will not be mid-gen refreshes. It's too early and it doesn't make sense. And frankly, I don't think people want that now. We're not going to be playing on 8K TVs in the next decade. Anyway, we'll move on. So, the Activision deal. Now, this deal's been going on for a long time. People really want Microsoft to get this deal through as fast as possible. I think Microsoft wants to because then they can, pretty much get things in motion. Maybe have some pre-production of some games going. And it came out today that there's going to be a vote on by the board on the whole Activision thing. And Logan, you've been following this lately, so what's your thought on it?
It's good news. It in this situation, it's basically the deal is April 28th. They're going to the board of Activision Blizzard is going to have a vote with the shareholders, and they're going to vote yes or no or abstain on the deal as proposed. And they've also made it clear in the filings that the board unanimously supports the deal. They think it's what they should do. They're recommending a yes vote for everyone, and they made it clear that if you abstain from it or you're a no vote, then that's a no vote. I mean, if you abstain or you just don't vote or absent, it's a no vote. So they're saying be clear on what you want to do. We think you need to vote on this, and if you don't vote yes on this and it doesn't pass, then there's no guarantee that our stock will be anywhere near this value again. It could plummet even further, and it's going to affect our development and a whole bunch of other things. So they're very much pushing it and wanting it to get done. This is not some concerned kind of piece of news or anything. It's to be expected. This was another step necessary in the process of getting this thing done. And in tying with this, Dina Bass with Bloomberg Tech just posted that um, FTC has officially requested, as of March 3rd, so a few weeks ago, that the more information from Activision Blizzard and Microsoft. So that means it's in stage two of the process, where stage one is, hey, we want to buy this company or merge with this company. Here's some information. Let's get the ball rolling. And in the US, which is different than some other countries, a lot of countries vote, yeah, we'll approve it, or no, we won't. US is like, we'll let it expire, and the time period pass, and if it passes without complaint, then it's just done, move along. But if we want more information, we'll ask for it. So for a deal of this size, 70 something $billion, and especially in the current political climate, which is um, a little more scrutinizing of deals of this manner, it was 100% expected that there would be asking for more information. So this is not a panic. This is not a concern. It's just, it is what it is. It was to be expected. And so they are now in stage two. So this will go on for a while. And then, depending on how that goes, the deal will be completed or um, voted against, or it will be approved with concessions. So it's moving along at a nice clip.
Yeah, so all in all, it looks like it's in a good place as of now. And the thing is, Activision stock is super high right now. It's the highest it's been in a long time. And if this deal were to hypothetically fall through, that stock's going to drop. And the stockholders don't want that. So they have to vote, basically, for it. So all in all, it looks like it's going to pass. And the thing is, I've heard Michael Pachter say on, I think it was on Daily Show when he mentioned this, I don't think Microsoft will have to say, hey, look, to get this Activision deal through, we're going to put future Fallout games on PlayStation, even though that's a Bethesda game. I do not think that makes sense. It's one of the few things I don't agree with, that just doesn't make sense. I do think we will see future Call of Duty games on PlayStation, like they've said, but, when it comes to Singularity 2, which I really want, or a future prototype game, a Guitar Hero coming back. A lot of people that wanting this to go through, we're just looking at their back catalogue and thinking, what could they work on in the future? Because again, Raven Software, they've been making Call of Duty games for years now. I would love to see them on a new game. And the thing is, Phil Spencer pretty much said the exact same thing when this whole deal started. So people just want to see more games. If this deal goes through, we could see Guitar Hero return. Proper Guitar Hero. Not that crap from 2005, 2015. Proper Guitar Hero. We could see Spyro the Dragon return. Imagine Toys for Bob making, I don't know, a Banjo Kazooie game. The people like me and Logan that want this deal to go through, we aren't wanting it to go through so we can go, hey, PlayStation can't get this game anymore. It's people want these games that don't exist. People want the possibility of these games being created because, again, we haven't had a new Spyro the Dragon game for what, 15 years? Spyro's connected to Skylanders and that's it. Outside of that, it's been a long time, but that franchise could return. And, I know, Logan, you've mentioned you wanted Hexic to return. People want these franchises to return. You could probably list a bunch that you want to come back.
Oh yeah, there are so many franchises that they have. I mean, you look at the pull up the list. There's um, it's kind of ridiculous just even on the Activision side alone, and then you throw in Blizzard's IP as well. I mean, we've talked about StarCraft. The fans have basically they've been almost feral for a long time, just waiting for a new StarCraft of some sort to happen. They're so passionate about it, and just they were so thrilled when the deal was proposed because they're like, hey, they actually put StarCraft in the banner. That's more attention than this franchise has gotten in years. This is a great sign. We're thrilled, and all these fans of these franchises are happy. I mean, there are some people who have concerns from their opinions on the deal in various formats, but in general, for fans of these franchises, they view this ultimately as a win if this gets done. Not only for the franchises, but for the people who work there. Number one, they're going to be having a way better culture, clean house, new leadership in charge, report directly to Phil, management structure. The studios are going to be freed from the COD mines, can work on whatever they actually want to work on instead of being shut down and forced to, you will make COD and COD support till the end of your days. It A lot of people, it benefits a ton of people. And, like you said, Hexen or Guitar Hero, Skylanders, Crash Bandicoot, uh, Singularity, which is super criminally underrated. Time Shift, which is similar and criminally underrated. Just so many King's Quest, uh, just a bunch of franchises that deserve another chance. And if, at the very least, you could make them BC and put them on Game Pass and see what people think, or have remasters or remakes or sequels. Bring StarCraft Ghost back, a game everybody wanted that got canned for the original Xbox. Looked super cool. Give that to the Coalition. Give Banjo to Toys with Bob. The sky's the limit for this deal, and so many people want it to happen. Um, and hopefully it will. I mean, it's out of our hands, obviously, but I would definitely like to see it happen, and hopefully soon.
Yeah, you mentioned the whole coalition and StarCraft thing. I think all the sci-fi nerds, like myself, when that deal was announced and they saw StarCraft in the banner, and you're right, StarCraft has been out of the limelight for what, a decade now since the last StarCraft expansion. And it's like nobody talks about StarCraft yet. They put that picture in the banner. We know what they're thinking. Like the coalition on a StarCraft third-person StarCraft game. That's the dream, man. Look, that's a game that doesn't exist and may never exist. I'll put it out there. I'd buy it day one, even though it would be in Game Pass. Like I need that in my life, and like so many franchises could come back. And you were saying like there's a lot of Activision games that aren't BC. So if that deal went through, maybe there's no more red tape. Maybe that could just be, they could just be on Xbox now via backwards compatibility. And all these game developers, you're right, like Raven Software, and there's like 50,000 studios that make Call of Duty content. Like the fact that Call of Duty wouldn't be annual anymore. Like think about it. Assassin's Creed used to be an annual franchise. Those games now are getting multiple years of content. Well, it would be the same for Call of Duty. You would probably see single player expansions even for those games. And it's like to see Call of Duty go from an annual game to once every 2 years would maybe help the game out a lot. Like Call of Duty is not selling less copies by it being annual, but wouldn't you want a better game like released in like multiple different years apart? Like that, I'd take that. And the thing is, I think that would be fresh for COD. Having multiple years of content would be more enticing to the player. And then I think clearing out house. Obviously, everyone knows Bobby Kotick. He's going to go. He needs to go. A lot of developers there really need their lives would be better with a different change of leadership. And at the end of the day, if the developers are happy, we get better games, and that's what people want. And the thing is, I've read some of the stories of crap that's been going on over at Activision Blizzard. Like, they need to clear house with a lot of staff, and I think when they announced the Activision deal, like Microsoft did post like a picture of like the higher ups at Xbox's gaming division, and it's like they care about their employees. Like Microsoft is one of the highest rated places on earth when it comes to Glassdoor. It's a website that reviews, corporations and like the treatment of the workers. Like people at Microsoft love working at Microsoft. Like this isn't 2010 or 2009 where, all Microsoft just wasn't in a great place like culturally, but now people love working there. And like the aspect that we could get games in the future, like a Singularity 2 or Remaster, a prototype coming back, that's an exciting thing. So it's like developers would benefit from it, and we would benefit from it with better and more games, and that's exciting, man. Again, it looks like the deal's going to go through. We're probably going to, the vote doesn't happen that far away, so we will see more soon. And yeah, have you got anything else to say on the whole Activision thing?
Just that I'm personally super excited for it and can't wait for it to get done. As a reminder, the date that they put for summer of next year, that was a by then. They expect to close by then. That doesn't mean it's going to take all of that time till summer of 2023. It's just a by then it'll be done one way or another. There is a chance you see it at the end of this year. But there is a chance it does drag out. But at the rate it's going, and the fact that it's not been negative news seems like a good sign.
Yeah, like I don't think we'll be waiting until like July 2023 to see what's going to happen. Like we're going to know sooner rather than later. And look at Bethesda. That deal went through quick. And even if you look at like things like the Disney deal, like when Disney bought Fox, like that was almost the same amount as well. It's like these deals they happen. But yeah, we will be finding more out soon, and we'll be covering that in the future. I was going to talk about Starfield a bit just because we got a new video last week. I made a video. Now, here's the thing. For people listening to the podcast, last week on the show, I said I'm going to put out a video about Starfield. That video exists. That video is going to come out. I'm going to talk about a lot of details that aren't public about Starfield. Well, the next day after the podcast, Bethesda put out a new video about Starfield. I had to talk about it. That video will be in the description down below. It's the last video I posted, and there's a lot of info in there by Bethesda. But when it comes to Starfield, that video containing all the other information will be out in the coming weeks. And yeah, I have videos coming out about other Xbox IP over the next week or two, which I think people really want to pay attention to. If you like Microsoft RPGs, I'll be covering that. But that's it for today's show, because we've had a lot to go over and we've been talking now for over 2 hours. This is the longest podcast to date that we've done, and we've really got to end the show. Have you got anything to close out the show with, Logan?
No, it's just, as always, it's been a pleasure, and thanks to everybody for stopping by, and see y'all next week.
Yeah, it's been a good show, man. And, everyone in chat has been good. This has been the first podcast since September 2021 where we haven't had a porn bot in chat. And that's a win. Seriously, they show up every week. They're all over YouTube. Please stop doing that. YouTube, fix that. But yeah, we will be back next week. And again, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. You'll be notified for future videos. The next video I have coming out is either out tomorrow or Thursday, depending on when it gets finished rendering and all that stuff. But if you like Microsoft exclusives and their tech, I'll be covering that. But again, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We'll be back next week for All Things Xbox podcast. Everyone take care. We are out. Have a good day.